I unleashed a CFO skill, which I've got baked into my skills within Claude. I turned it onto Fable 5, of course, on max effort. And my prompt was pretty advanced prompt. I used prompt Cowboy in the agent setting. Go and use it, of course. And I said, act like a partner of a Big Four advisory firm and give me one of those reports they give you. I went and downloaded everything out of QuickBooks, all P&L, three-way cash flow forecast, balance sheet, the whole thing, all of last year, the first 18 days of this financial year. And I said, from everything you know about me and everything you have in here, big prompt. It was a pretty cool prompt. Be like a partner of a Big Four. It was eye-watering. The results were eye-watering. And it did make those little assumptions, and it made which you could borderline hallucination, but I actually pulled it back, didn't give it a whack. I didn't need to. It was such a trusted advisor. I didn't need to do what we've done in the past with other models. And I actually said, look, here's a bit of coaching, a bit more context around this. And my version 2 of that report was all I needed. It actually gave me my picture for the whole of the year. It gave me my runway. It gave me what I need to do, diversification, new game plans, what I need. It was eye-wateringly good.
G'day everyone, and welcome to Zero Shot, the AI podcast without the hype. And we're built for one reason, and that's to be the source that you actually trust when it comes to AI in business. And every week, we're bringing you the conversations, the breakdowns, and the honest analysis that'll help you make better decisions in a space that is moving incredibly fast. I'm James Gauci, the CEO of Cadent. We build AI for high-risk sectors. And this is episode 27, and I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Llew Jury. Llew, how you going?
G'day, James, and hello to all the listeners around the world. Episode 27, wow, how cool is this? And also, welcome to anybody joining for the first time. I'm Llew Jury, the Managing Director of Advancer, and what we do is we build quality AI for all Australian businesses. James and I, we're two people, aren't we? Funnily enough, we're not avatars or...
No, there are no deepfakes in this room presently.
No deepfakes. We're just two people that live inside this industry of AI every day, and we know about all the noise that's around AI, and it's generally overwhelming right now for a number of businesses. But one thing, we're all in it together, and this is why we actually built Zero Shot, this amazing pod, and for everybody that's out there looking for a steady hand through the AI revolution.
Excellent. So. Today, we're going to be talking about, it's the flavor of the month. It's been controversial for a long time. It's a model that has come to be known as Fable 5. And, we all started hearing about the Mythos model, and a lot of us thought it was a little bit of a furphy. But what has come to pass since is so much. It's been export controlled. It's been part of Project Glasswing. It's been hidden away and given out to select people to test, and then hacked by Amazon accidentally, and et cetera, et cetera. But look, the bottom line is we've got access to this incredibly sophisticated model. And what we want to do today is kind of demystify it a little bit, help you understand how to get the best use out of it, Llew. And we've got a couple of points that we want to hit today, don't we?
We do, James. 3, in fact. So first of all, we're going to hit and really focus in on what Fable actually is and why you're almost certainly underutilizing it. And I'm going to probably learn from James today as well. So this is going to be a masterclass, and
don't oversell it, Llew. Keep the lid on.
Secondly, I'm just going to go on pause and just listen for 45 minutes. Secondly, the full picture of what it can actually do. And, the specific things it unlocks and some of the use cases that we're doing in business with our clients and what James is doing as well, that was actually impossible, let's call it a couple of months ago even. And third, how to use it really well, responsibly and without burning through those magical tokens in your budget. So, let's get into it.
And a quick thanks to Prompt Cowboy, because a model this powerful only rewards you if you brief it well, which was our whole episode last week, so check that one out. But Prompt Cowboy helps you build precise, structured prompts before you put your models to work. Use the agent setting in the chat window. A powerful model with a lazy prompt is wasted, and this is how you fix it. Go to promptcowboy.
Yeah. Go there, right on down. Let's get into tool or news of the week, James, and there's huge amounts of news been going on. I know it's not on our run sheet here, but can you just talk us through what our Prime Minister announced last week? If you I knew you'd be all over it, and you didn't actually put it in the notes, but I thought Can you give the listeners a really quick high level and some of the key things like data centers and how they have to be renewable based and, zero cost and stuff like that? Just give us a really quick high, overview of what got announced late last week.
Yeah, I'll give you the whirlwind tour. And honestly, I completely forgot that this was since the recording of the last podcast. AI years are like dog years.
They are.
Time moves about seven times as quickly. Look, the very broad brushstrokes, the thing. Look, I'll start with the most significant thing, I think, which is that the current Australian government is taking a stand on copyright. There has been a lot of, conversation and lobbying on the part of the tech sector to relax the Australian copyright laws that would allow text mining and data mining to occur and for that kind of machine learning activity to be exempt from copyright law. But I don't think Prime Minister could have come out in stronger terms to protect that on behalf of people who create things. And let's face it, if we're in knowledge work, we're usually developing a ton of IP, right? So, and not to mention artists and creatives and musicians and so on. So that's one side of the ledger. The other side of the ledger is around regulation. And it's not the kind of regulation that many of us have been talking about for a long time. It's not regulation of, the risk factors associated with generative AI models. It's regulation of data centers. And that's what the main thrust of the Office of AI is going to be about. I believe it's going to be about making sure that there is a standard for data centers, and that standard will be legislated, which is basically saying that if you're going to put a data center in Australia, you've got to underwrite your own power, you're going to have to make deals on water. And I think that that's probably a good kind of point of maturation in the conversation, because there has been, I think, some reasonable concern out there amongst the community about what those kinds of impacts are going to be for day-to-day people.
And more so for that last point about in the US, it's become a really, big political play. And I heard that, New York has actually put a 12-month moratorium on, the whole state. Through their mayor and things like that, to say no more data centers. We're going to review it because it's such a political football in terms of what's going on there. And I think we've brought that forward, haven't we? We've really brought forward that conversation around as these data centers get built with Firmus and Sharon AI and all of those sort of different players that you read about and hear about that are out of generally Sydney. That we do it responsibly, and I think that's a critical thing. The other thing I read, James, was around every single agency now in the federal government has to have a chief AI officer. And one of the interesting things, there was two that missed it, I read this morning, but basically they don't have to be tech. You can actually be a general punter in there as a DepSec or a FAS or something like that. And you actually can join that role. I don't know how that's going to go. I think you sometimes need someone who's a bit of tech and maybe a bit of business and all that sort of thing, a bit like this pod. But I actually it was quite interesting to read that you don't have to be tech. So that's good for all of us that don't have that. The other thing is you're not going to be paid extra. So you're not going to actually get extra revenue. So things are starting to spin up in this whole world of governance at the federal level, and especially now it's actually in the Prime Minister's office, this whole new AI policy.
Yeah, that's as big a political signal as you can get in Australia. If the Prime Minister's bringing it into the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, then you can be sure that they're keeping a pretty close eye on it and they're prioritising it quite highly. So yeah, watch this space. It's interesting times for sure.
Interesting. I think we've used up both of our times for news of the week. I'm going to weave in my news of the week into our conversation.
I think so. Maybe we can do it now. Like tell me about what's happened since Fable, and what are the models that have come out since Fable? Because Fable was 2 months ago that it came out in general availability first on a trial basis. Yeah. Old news.
Yeah, it was about 3 months ago. They got banned for a month, and then they fixed it up, and the whole Mythos thing and things like that. So what's come out since then in the last week has been the big one that they're sort of speculating, could this be the new DeepSeek? And that's Moonshot AI's Kimi K3. And Kimi K3 is a 2.8 trillion parameter model, the largest open weight model anyone's ever seen and put out there. So significantly challenging what we're going to talk about today, the frontier models, the closed models. And it actually goes beyond just AI and tokens and models and what we use. It's actually moving the economic needle at a macro level. So when DeepSeek came out, if you remember, in 2025, the actual stock market was affected because it went, hang on, we're putting trillions, literally trillions, into data centers and infrastructure and inference and the training of these large language models to actually then for us to go and pay for those. But here's some Chinese open weight models that actually are coming in and on the benchmarks doing pretty well. Like their Kimi K3 against OpenAI's Sol 5.6 and also Fable 5, which is what we're going to talk about today. There is a few little hallucinations and things that have been happening, but basically these are super powerful and at about 80% of the cost. And what we're starting to see now is challenging the board decisions around, cost versus data sovereignty and all the things we're going to get into today. So I think I might leave it there. Let's weave in the rest of that conversation into our
Sounds
three
good to me.
Awesome segments. And let's get into this first segment, what actually Fable is. So James, like Fable, it's Anthropic's chief model. It's, as I said, it's from a frontier lab that basically has built pretty much the most powerful bit of kit that you can actually use and do. It's its most capable model. And it's about sustaining complex multi-step tasks in this agent harness that we use as the chat window, isn't it? So give us a quick overview in plain terms. What makes Fable different out there?
Yeah, the really simple, in a nutshell version is that it's persistent, it's thorough, and it's built for looping tasks.
Yeah.
So I'll break down each of these things. So persistence, this is the kind of model that you can run in a loop for a week at a time and it won't lose its way. That is absolutely wild to somebody like me who's been working with limited context windows for as long as I have. And the context window is limited, but the way that it condenses what it learns and it manages its memory and things like that so effectively that it can maintain coherence over very long periods of time. So that's the first one. The second one is thoroughness. So the thoroughness of the model is down to how deep is it going to go on any one task. And if you've used any frontier model over the last couple of years, you'll know that sometimes it doesn't always go into the depth that you want it to on some topics, or it doesn't go, like, for example, if you're working with a code base or you're working with a document store, it might just read the first little bit of each document and then it'll kind of make up the rest. It'll be like, oh yeah, it'll wave over in the direction of that document or that file and go, yeah, that one's kind of about this and this one's kind of about that. Fable is designed to be far more systematic. It's designed to delegate really effectively to sub-agents so that it can optimize token usage and compute usage in these long-running tasks. And finally, looping. And this comes back to that memory management, context management piece, the thing that allows it to have a kind of the roughly million token context window, but use that context window over and over and over again in the same session. It's because it's so good at summarizing things and keeping it to the point so that when it takes a next step, when it refreshes its context, it doesn't lose its way. So all of this is wild, and this is why it's essentially weapons grade AI, because if you point a model like this at a secure data store somewhere or a cloud somewhere or an organization somewhere, it's just going to keep going until it breaks in. And that's why there was such a big hoo-ha around Mythos and how it got export controlled reportedly because Amazon managed to get behind the guardrails of Fable 5 and turn it back into Mythos again, which is the same model without its guardrails. But it's been designed for these three things, and it just so happens to also be exceptional at reasoning. And this, just a one comment on what you mentioned there, Llew, before we move on. The Fable class models or Mythos class models, same model, now include the likes of OpenAI's Sol model and Kimi's K3 model. And so it's when we talk about Fable today, the majority of our observations are kind of transferable to those models as well. It's just that Fable was the first one and the big one, and it's got the most research and thinking put into it. So it's a good one to talk about.
It is, isn't it? And in Australia, of course, in the last few days, it's just been, I suppose, if you're on the $200 a month max program and you're on a more advanced model, it's now baked into your usage, and you get 50% of your usage against it. For most organizations out there that we work with, they're on Claude Teams, which is circa $30 a month. and you've actually got to pay for it now separately. But there is a little magical thing. If you're on Claude Teams, go into the organizational settings, and you can get per user $100 worth of credit. And so you can actually go in and get and activate we've got 9 users going at the moment on one of our licenses. $900 was added today towards Fable, which is awesome. So yeah, let's frame it again. And I just wanted to go back into something that I've been using and how I've been using Fable.
I seem to recall that you said that you save it up for one task a week because it was so powerful. Has that evolved since it became a little bit more generally available? And since, I mean, today, the day of recording, they kind of released a general availability for people on the Max plan and Teams Premium plans.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been saving it up in the last few weeks, really just building it around a couple of use cases. So the first one was the vanity metrics of the world, which we talked on a couple of episodes ago about, let's go and build something shiny. Let's build a website. So I've been updating my website. I've been building it, and this is the context that James refers to. I've had in my Claude co-work, which is only in the app, of course, I've actually had this project up and running with skills, about 4 or 5 skills that I've been using. And I've had my website project up there. And remember, about 2 weeks ago, I built it in a day using Fable, and I blew my tokens within, twice during the day. I had to top them up. So that's a bit of a shiny vanity one. There's been strategic work that I've been doing, James, around these are sort of 2-week programs of work. And these are something that actually no AI has been able to do for me in the past. And what this is keeping the memory and the context going of a very robust, very multi-dimensional, multi-step, either tender submission or an actual report and some pretty complex stuff that's going on with some of the projects that we work with. So I've had it going for about 3 use cases. And it's interesting, when you make the decision between using Fable, it's often down to sort of 3 levels these days. It's quick email, quick update, we can use Haiku or we use Sonnet, right? Now, Opus is becoming super important in the middle, Opus 4.8, even on max effort, because I'm pushing the envelope of that to get as much as I can out of it, because I'm saving Fable for the truly the big task, the unlimited task, if you want, because of that token and that large window. So I love the sustained complex side, of how Fable works, and it hasn't let me down so far. I've been testing it alongside Sol 5.6, and I've just slid the bar up in GPT land to max effort, and I've been hammering it and just seeing if it compares and contrasts, and it kind of does, producing images, which is great on ChatGPT. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it, and I've been really enjoying the fact that I've had these 3 projects working. What about you, James? What if someone's out there feeling that been using Fable as a normal chatbot and feeling a little underwhelmed, is it last episode about prompt engineering, or what's a mental shift you need to take to actually make it right?
Yeah, that's the first port of call. Like, investigate your prompting strategy. Like, have a look at how you could improve that and try some different stuff. But the Fable specific recommendation that I can give is forget what you think you already knew about AI's capabilities. This is another one of those step change moments. This is a generational shift in AI capability for the first time in, I think it's fair to say, a couple of years, and maybe not a couple of years, maybe a year. Again, AI is dog years. But forget the things that you think you know, and think bigger. And once you think big, break out of that ceiling and think bigger again, because the quality of information that you get is absolutely exceptional. And it's because this is the generation after Opus 4.8. And Opus 4.8 for a long time, like, it was the king of the castle for such a long time, as essentially every AI professional's workhorse for the better part of the last 3-6 months. And we thought it was amazing, but this is that feeling all over again. So the things that we're used to saying no to Fable, no to kind of AI for, Fable is actually quite good at, because of that persistence and that thoroughness and the extra depth of what you might call intelligence that brings to bear. But something that's worth considering is how much thinking effort that you give Fable as to what task you're asking it to do. And the reason why I say this is because Fable 5, and I've got it in front of me here. So Fable 5 on high effort, that's the default. I wouldn't recommend, unless you really wanted to get wacky, or you really wanted to, like, exceptional levels of thoroughness, go up to extra. And at this point, for most tasks, max is too much. And what I've seen is Fable starts to hallucinate because it's thinking too much. And I don't know if anybody out there, you might know somebody who is a smart person who has a habit of overthinking, and they overthink so much that they start to think about and worry about stuff that isn't there. That is what that is. It's a similar kind of feeling when you're working with Fable, where it's kind of jumping at shadows a bit. But if you're doing creative work, then absolutely give Fable a shot. It's creative and divergent in its thinking in ways that previous models haven't been, Llew.
Yeah, spot on, James. And it sort of unlocks our second segment, which is what was impossible before and actually what we can do now. And I tested this on the weekend because I was using up my last dying embers of my free Fable credits. And I unleashed a CFO skill, which I've got baked into my skills within Claude, and I turned it onto Fable 5, of course, on max effort to what you talked about. And my prompt was pretty advanced prompt. I used prompt Cowboy in the agent setting, go and use it, of course. And I said, act like a partner of a big four advisory firm, and give me one of those reports they give you. If you've ever been to an accountant, they go, look, for $3,000, $4,000, we can give you a report that is the whole concept of your business. So I went, because QuickBooks is even though it's a connector in Claude, it doesn't work in Australia just yet. But I went and downloaded everything out of QuickBooks, all P&L, three-way cash flow forecast, balance sheet, the whole thing, all of last year, the first 18 days of this financial year. And I said, from everything you know about me and everything you have in here, big prompt. It was a pretty cool prompt based on RCTF, of course. Go and have a look at that last week. Be like a partner of a big four. It was eye-watering. The results were eye-watering. And it did make those little assumptions, and it made which you could borderline hallucination, but I actually pulled it back, didn't give it a whack. I didn't need to. It was such a trusted advisor. I didn't need to do what we've done in the past with other models. And I actually said, look, here's a bit of coaching, a bit more context around this. And my version 2 of that report was all I needed. It actually gave me my picture for the whole of the year. It gave me my runway. It gave me what I need to do, diversification, new game plans, what I need. It was eye-wateringly good. And I encourage everybody to run tasks like that, especially around finance, of course, in a secure way. Make sure you keep your data protected, and get into it in a from a messy document, a messy world of multiple documents. It will produce something quite brilliant for you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I mean, if you're in finance or legal in consulting, Llew, what do you think that the most valuable thing that Fable unlocks is that they're maybe not using yet? I mean, you've talked about being able to handle massive tasks like that. Is that the headline? Like the big tasks that we used to ask a consultant at $500 an hour to do, we can kind of hand off to Fable now, provided the prompt is good enough?
Yeah, I think what's in the detail, I think it's the granularity that we talk about here, James. It's not sort of what every other AI has produced for me. Go and do this task. Give me your read on this, right? I think what it does is it you could call it advanced vision. It actually reads diagrams. It looks at charts and tables that are deeply, deeply buried in a PDF. Of course, it's probably consuming more tokens than you need to, but basically it's going into those PDFs and you're just assuming that it's actually going to find them, and it does. The other thing is it does this complex analysis. It basically is self-aware to actually break down. And if you said something like, give me a, discounted cash flow, a DCF, or, give me a different model, give me a ratio or something like that from a financial setting, it would actually you just give it one line, one prompt. It will actually break down this complex task that takes analysts, days and weeks to actually work out. The other point is that it's self-verification. It actually reviews its own output. And if you look at the reasoning when it's going through it, and you click on the reasoning, which is sort of the thinking window, you can actually see this, and it's actually critiquing itself. It pulls itself up. Now, the only other model that have seen doing that is Opus 4.8, where you can actually visually say, I've gone down the wrong way. I need to pull myself back. I need to go and do this now. So these are the sort of examples. So we're blending here, to answer your question, finance, consulting, advisory, but very, very deep. And all that complex analysis is the critical piece.
Yeah.
What about you, fantastic. James? What about you? Like, if you had to hand something big and it's working autonomously, what does it actually feel like to you? Like what's I suppose surprised you, and have you hooked it up to some of the the back ends? Have you sort of tested it in that world that you live in?
Yeah, so we've been angling. We've got I can speak specifically, and I have to because it matters to answer the question. We've changed the way that we consume Anthropic services in order to increase our ability to consume Fable.
Interesting.
So for various reasons, for example, like one of those reasons being the token cost is insane.
Yeah.
Other reasons being AWS Sydney doesn't have it yet, etc. There's a limited way of being able to access it. So something that I said at the AI Safety Forum a couple of weeks ago, as a primarily software business, if we don't have access to Fable 5, we are at a competitive disadvantage. Like we can't not have it. We have to find ways to have it, because when we're doing agentic systems engineering, the ability to hand off a task to a high quality orchestrator is paramount to success. And the best quality orchestrator of AI systems at the moment is Fable 5, Sol and Kimi K3 notwithstanding. That class of model, let's say, is the best orchestrator. It's designed for that kind of orchestration of fleets of other workers and so on. And we use 4.8 for that, Opus 4.8, and it's been good. Like, it's not been bad, it's been amazing. But Fable 5 is another level up again. If we give access to other sub-agents and other tools of various levels of complexity to do certain jobs like QA or like code base review or like feature development or design or whatever, Fable can act as not just the orchestrator of kind of 3 to 5 other agents. It can orchestrate a team of other team leads, which are managing another, like a lower level fleet of other agents, which are managing all sorts of other tools and semi-agentic other workflows. So it allows us to scale up again, I guess, is the answer to the question. It allows us to change our way of working and scale up our productivity and our token use, mind you, as well, which Anthropic would be quite happy about in ways that we couldn't previously, which is, I think, the strategy that Anthropic holds for these kinds of models into the future.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about, of course, using it responsibly and without burning the budget shortly. But what about, James, in terms of actual, people out there, they've got their Claude license for $30 a month. Because we, of course, encourage paying for it. You're not going to see Fable if you don't pay for your AI, of course. Hopefully, everybody in the last 7 months since we've been running this pod is now paying for it. I think that's the critical piece here. How do we put it in their hands? A client of mine, a property client, self-driven, self-directed. They've got many different levels. They've got the max. The 2 founders are on the max level, and they've got the 12 to 13 people in the the main team on the $30 a month teams, and they've got some other ones going as well. But they did an amazing report that would have taken an analyst 2 weeks to build for them. They would have maybe shipped that analyst in to do that work as a consultant, and they actually did it overnight. And one of the partners sent it to the other partner, and basically both of them, who are very professional and very experienced and very successful in their world, basically said it was eye-wateringly good again, a bit like my experience that I just reflected on. And I think the critical piece here is that if you are looking at doing long autonomous work, you've got some messy documents, you've got deep research that's out there. Actually, to James's point, run it through Fable in a practical way. Build a great prompt using RCTF and the prompting frameworks. And basically, anybody can do this. This is the piece that matters most at the moment. It unlocks basically the impossible that we couldn't actually access before. So yeah, using it well. So James, let's get into the final piece, which is about using it well, responsibility. I think there's a responsibility piece here. In what we do from a consumption level. There's a data sovereignty piece coming very soon if we unleash this onto Sydney AWS and, we hook it up, because we're still using 4.6 and 4.8, aren't we? What a lot of people don't realize is people like us in the AI world, when we connect into the console on Anthropic for the API calls, if you like, for our clients' platforms that we hook up to, we're on 4.6 because it's tried and tested. It's working really well. It's giving great results. and we're on Opus 4.6. We're not actually connecting Fable in with a big pipe at the moment. It's mainly in the agent harness, which is your Claude license. So let's be honest, I suppose, with everybody here. Fable is expensive per use and it's gated behind certain plans, and it's changed overnight in Australia in the last day or two, and it can burn through people's limits really fast. So, let's get into how do you personally decide what's it worth, spending that money on? And what's not, and how do you sort of program your mind? Do you, it's down to this sort of $50 US, $70 Australian, throw at it per million tokens. How do people approach it, James?
What we, in our recent analysis of our own methods of consuming tokens and the particular jobs that we're doing with particular token sources, was that the Claude license, the license that you get directly from Anthropic, is far and away the best value for money that you'll get in token usage of Claude models. It's not even close. Like, if you're a heavy user, if you use all of the tokens that are available to you, you're basically getting about $8,000 worth of tokens every month, right? Like, it's not even close. And of course, that's good for Anthropic because they get the data and they get the metadata around the conversations that you're having, and they use that to train it, and they're hacking your behavior, and they're trying to find out what you want to use it for, and this and that and the other.
Although you can turn it off. You can turn off training of the models, but
you can turn off training, but you can't turn off telemetry when you're using it directly through Anthropic, and they can always find technical legal loopholes, as Silicon Valley has always done. Google is probably the best at this, and Facebook as well. They're quite good, where they will not use the data itself, but they will get a machine to securely read that data and summarize it or create some data about it, and then they'll use that data. So it's one step removed, but it's close enough to build a product and make it the best in the world. The thing that I would probably say is, if you have specific tasks and specific use cases, you should have a specific baseline of how much it costs to do each of those jobs, right? And one of the metrics that we've started to see come up a lot, especially with these increasingly powerful models and these very expensive kind of Mythos class models, is cost per task as a metric. And you can go out there and have a look, find some graphs. They're pretty easy to find, but you can see that dollar cost per task, Opus 4.8 on extra high is about equivalent to Fable on effort medium. So Opus 4.8 will use more tokens, but it will complete the task. And when I say the task, I'm talking about an evaluation list, like a list of tasks in an evaluation set that they use to conduct these kinds of analyses. That's probably the top metric that we're going to start seeing a little bit more frequently in the advent of these very heavy models. But that's a good thing, because compute, like access to compute, access to hardware, access to RAM, access to GPUs, it's a heavily constrained market. And like, I'm seeing every 3 months, the same old GPUs that have been around for probably 12 months just go up by another $1,000, $1,000, $1,000 on the open market. Like a GPU that would have cost about $5,000 or $6,000 4 years ago of a similar class now costs about $18,000 to $20,000.
Wow.
It's just unreal. And these are the fundamental building blocks of models like this. And that constraint, the constraint of those kinds of hardwares, are leading to token constraints, increasing token costs. And so understanding your use cases is actually the best way to optimize your total cost of ownership of AI systems still in 2026. It's always been the case. It's just now it's super in focus. We've got $75 per million token models and stuff floating around. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And I suppose this is just as important to know when to use Fable and knowing when not to use Fable, and back to this, if it's a quick task, if it's simple, if it's something that's a lighter model can handle, then just put that where that belongs and keep your Fable budget, protect your Fable budget because of this cost, and keep it intact for work that you need, even if you save it for a week. But
a nice little kind of shortcut that I often use if I don't want to think about it that day is to top and tail your task with the powerful model. Yeah. Like, get it to write the plan and get it to run QA, and then just get a workhorse in the middle. Especially if you're running low, you're seeing that bar just approach your weekly limit. You just do some top and tailing, and you'll have a softer landing than I've experienced a few times. One of my staff just blew through his Fable budget in about 3 hours. And he's like, what the hell?
You're just too good.
The output was amazing. Like he
Yeah.
essentially rebuilt the software as a service that we use in the course of about half a day. But it was still a surprise when it happened for it.
It is, isn't it? And I suppose that's where the market is sitting right now in terms of, you've got Fable at the top, and it's right at the top of the rankings, followed closely by OpenAI's Sol 5.6, and then you've got this moonshot that came out a few days ago, Kimi K3, and starts to really challenge, doesn't it? Like the whole rule of which one we're going to use. And I think you got to think back to what OpenAI and Anthropic are sort of backed by, and that's venture capital money, that's private equity money, and that $8,000 that James talks about that you're actually using for $30 a month is not going to be sustainable forever. So the other thing that people are talking about, James, quite rightly, is this responsibility, being responsible in the way you approach it, and saying the good times can't last forever, because we're going to have to see some listings on the the US stock markets to put retail money into it, because private capital has been propping
you can't build a business on Fable yet.
No, not yet.
That's the reality. Yeah,
not yet. And a lot of those yell and sell and those TikTokers and things like that, those influencers basically who are sort of trying to say that it's they're using the models that we're all using, as an API. But I think the big thing is, if the job is quick or clean or simple, just use a lightweight model, because you're going to then get that muscle memory about not burning the tokens, and it's going to be, your budgets aren't going to be. And you're going to get through the day. You're going to be able to multitask. You might do a bit of Sonnet here, a bit of Opus there, and save your Fable, as we talked about.
Clean your transcripts with Sonnet 5, not Fable 5.
On Medium, correct, exactly. So it's about discipline, I think. The key message here for me is responsibly using it with discipline and making sure you're doing that so you're not burning the budget. That's my tip for using Fable, and making sure you're getting the most out of it. The other thing, if you're not too concerned about data sovereignty, or you're not too concerned about where your business or where you personally are going with, these open weight models, definitely give Kimi K3 a try. And I've been using Kimi K3 just in the chat window over the weekend, because I think the API is coming out in 10 days or so, late July.
Yeah, I think the open weights are going to be available on the 27th. I think that's the
27th.
Date,
yeah, that's what I saw. So basically, I've been just practicing and trying it out, and I know just by talking to a few coders and software engineers, they've been using it and getting some great results as well. So I think what we're saying is, make sure you have a wide variety of options, both within the Anthropic world and also outside of it, but keep your Fable for without burning the budget, and all the high value work gets done through that particular model. So yeah, very cool, James. Anything else on the side of tokens and burning budgets? And
I think on responsibility, I don't think we just to unpack responsibility a little bit, because there is a feature of Fable, and specifically Fable, not Mythos, but Fable, where it will hand off tasks to Opus 4.8 if those tasks are if Fable itself determines that those tasks are in certain domains like cybersecurity and medicine and things like that. And for anybody who hasn't encountered this, it is a real thing. I've encountered it. And when you're doing sensitive work, I often encounter it. And it was a cybersecurity, like forensic cybersecurity kind of use case, where I was planning a technical approach to doing some digital forensics, and it got halfway through, and it was like, "No, I'm out.
Not me. Yeah,
that's not me. I'm not allowed to do that." And that was frustrating. The main reason.
Why? Like, was it because of you're in the groove, or is it because like you felt that this is multi-step agentic handing itself off?
I think this is a deliberate product decision. Anybody who says that this is related to the export controls or anything like that, I think is being a bit glass half full about it. My glass half empty kind of view is that they are gating access to their highest value information now, and because they know how much it's worth. And I think what we're going to see is more and more specialized harnesses, like we got Claude Design, and we've got Claude Co-work, and we've got Claude Code, and these are separate harnesses for separate jobs. I think we're going to see Claude for medicine and Claude for cybersecurity, and so on and so forth. And some of these things,
Claude for Teaching came out. Yeah.
So some of these things do already exist. They're just not like big flashy releases or anything. But this is Anthropic gearing up for IPO. This is not export control or social responsibility or anything. That there's an opinion section, by the way, guys. I know this is an opinion and not necessarily factual, but it seems to me that they're just holding their cards close to their chest on this class of valuable intelligence, so that when they hit their IPO, they can just play these cards one by one and dominate sectors. Whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know. But what I do know is that I feel like I can't give my customers the best possible service, because I don't know when Fable's going to tell me I'm not allowed to be smart about that thing.
Mm.
It's a very interesting dynamic that I had emotions about it. It's like, you're not allowed to be smart about that, or you're not allowed to have that part of the information. It's the first time that Anthropic has reached through the harness to us and gone, no, you can't have that.
Yeah.
And it was a bit weird.
And the macro time was when, the White House and the State Department blocked us in Australia or anybody outside of the US. That we weren't allowed to use Fable, and got turned off after a weekend, wasn't it? So there is these controls coming in. And to your point, James, I agree. I think they're saving up Fable 5.1 and 5.2 and 5.3 once they get their $2 trillion valuation. General advice only. We don't think it is $2 trillion, but, once they get that valuation, it's going to be, it's going to be quite interesting to see how they deliver what you're talking about, and actually they roll out their roadmap in a responsible way, whilst they're keeping us, people out there from burning our budgets. That's pretty much it. So, no, very interesting. I think this has been awesome, and I think we're going to do it again. We're going to talk about, these serious leading frontier models again, and let's keep going through them one by one as we discuss this in the various episodes of this awesome pod. What's your key takeaway from today, James? And what's the key message that you'd like to leave all the listeners?
I think it's something that you alluded to, I think, Llew, which is that a diversity of suppliers of your AI systems is the key to success. I think there's been and it's a logical thing when you've got big companies who want to sell you their ecosystem and stuff like that. But there's a bit of a false narrative around, are we a Claude shop, or are we an OpenAI shop, or are we a Microsoft shop, or whatever? It's not even just those four. This is a huge field of providers and offerings and narrowly capable models. And what I would encourage people to do is have a think about that business continuity mindset when it comes to their AI. If Fable gets turned off again tomorrow, what are you going to do? How is your business impacted? What is your contingency plan? And does it mean that you keep a K3 instance cold, ready to go when you need some heavy lifting done? Or do we use GLM 5.2 as our workhorse for all tasks, because it's literally 20% of the cost of Opus 4.8 and about 95% of the performance? Like, there are things you can do to diversify that mean you're not having to put all your eggs in one basket. So really, for your own resilience and the resilience of your organization, and to take advantage really of a diversity of intelligences, let's call them, I'd strongly recommend having a couple in the back pocket. Llew, how about you? What's your key takeaway? What would you like to leave the audience with today?
Before I do that, I just want to agree with you, James, on that. I actually think, and for the first time, I've seen a client recently come to me with an agent harness. They built their own chatbot that does a lot of good stuff within their organization. And I've been talking to them recently, and up on the LLM selector, up on the model selector was interesting. I think it was Opus 4.6, it was Sonnet, and then Kimi K3, or the last
2.7
model,
or something like that.
2.7, I think it was. Yeah.
Yep.
Very interesting. And that redundancy that you talk about, I'm actually thinking of it now. Like, I think general punters like us, I mean, not just the coders are doing all this already. You mentioned the Olama models and things like that. And now we've got Kimi K. I think we're going to all, within 12 months, have redundancy built in, and we're going to have multiple models that we fall back on to do the jobs that we don't mind, that maybe are a little more risky from a data sovereignty point of view with the whole Chinese open weight sort of side of things. But we have them right there as a personal assistant ready to go. If for one day the Fable gets turned off, if
or the internet goes down, which it does, everyone.
Right, it does. It does. It is 99.9 for a reason, not 100%.
That's right. That's what 4 hours a year or something in 99.9.
That's a long time. That's a long time. So, look, coming back to my point, my takeout and takeaway was, use Fable wisely, reserve it for those most, detailed, messy tasks, the long autonomous work, the advanced vision, if it needs to go and find a model or a ratio or some sort of chart or diagram, go and use Fable for that. And the complex analysis, treat it, with a great skill like your CFO skill or some financial modeling or analysis about your business or anything really, not about maybe your recipes or, organizing your photos like a lot of the gimmicky stuff.
Wouldn't using Fable make you a Michelin star chef all of a sudden? Isn't that the idea?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do from now. I'm going to head off and start making...
Hey, Fable, how do I cook rice?
Turn me into Dim Sim Lim, who's my favorite TikToker, showing me how to do my garlic chicken. So I think, absolutely turn me into that person. But reserve it for the deep knowledge, the messy, and save it up and really, use those credits wisely. James, this has been an awesome episode. And what are we doing next week? What's on the game plan for next week? Is exciting.
Next week, we're doing something we've been wanting to do for a while. We are officially 6 months into this podcast, which is wild. And way back in episode 3, went out in February this year, 2026, we did our AI tier list. Who was winning, who was falling behind, who had the staying power. And it's been a few months. And honestly, the ground has shifted more than I think any of us could have predicted. And some of the names are at the top and not quite at the top anymore, are they? So next week, we're going to redo the whole thing, what changed, who climbed, who slipped, what it actually means for where you place your bets in 2026. So if you heard episode 3, you're going to want to hear how it aged and how deeply wrong I was. So don't miss it.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. We have to put up, we're going to have to put up the before and afters, and this is what I said, and this is what I thought, and put up the Fs and the S's and all that. This is going to be a good pod. It's going to be a great episode. Like today, It's been awesome. So, look, and thanks again to our sponsor, Prompt Cowboy. Most people, get average results from their prompting with AI, and it's mainly the number one reason is a vague prompt, and no model fixes it better than Prompt Cowboy. So it's agentic prompting feature will really help your Fable world and give you a clear, structured prompt before you put it to work and jump in the saddle of Fable and all the advanced models. So if today made you want to get more out of your AI, this is the place to start. So trot on over to promptcowboy.ai. And thank you for joining Zero Shot Podcast. Today's episode's been awesome. And thank you so much. It's not just for listening as well, but for staying with us all the way through. So sincerely, this means everything to James and I, and it's what keeps us going and just doing this week in, week out, doesn't it?
Yeah, we built Zero Shot on something simple. That's the right information delivered straight at the right time. And we believe that can change how an entire generation of business leaders navigate the AI revolution. That's what we're showing up for every week. It's for builders, it's for skeptics, it's for strategists, everyone in between who are just trying to make sense of this space and actually moving the needle in their industries. This is why we are here, guys.
Yeah, and if you're confused about anything to do with AI, which a lot of us are, if there's a topic you cannot find a straight answer to, and something you heard today from James and I, and you want to understand it better, then tell us. Please do leave a comment, drop us a message, send us a note. We read everything. We literally do, and we promise you, if you do have a question, someone else does out there as well. We know that, and we'll build an episode around it. So, yeah, you're part of it.
Fantastic. So if today was useful, and we hope it was, the best thing you can do for us right now is to follow us. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you're listening, costs you nothing. That's what keeps the mission alive and in front of more people who need it. So find our LinkedIn page, search for Zero Shot there, go to zeroshot.com.au. That's kind of the hub of everything. Follow me, James Gauci, and Llew Jury on LinkedIn. We're pests on there, and we're also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We put weekly short form content together for each episode. So even if you're in a busy week and you just need the headlines, you can get the snapshots from your reels. And if there's someone in your world who's trying to navigate AI right now, flick them a link, share this episode with them. That's how we grow. It's through your advocacy. If this is the kind of stuff that you want to hear, definitely share it along. That's how we help more people.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick one on those short form content. I asked my son's mate the other day, are you listening to Zero Shot? And he said, yes, I am. And I said, well, what do you think of the episodes? He goes, I don't listen to the episodes. I just watch all of the reels, and that's how I get all of my knowledge.
Subtitles. Yeah.
Subtitles, 21-year-old, that's what they do. And so, jump on over and check it out on TikTok and Instagram where he is. And one more shout out to Yenny Larotta, our amazing producer. Thank you so much. So yeah, stay sharp, stay sovereign, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you folks. Take care.